All right, so for this project, we are going to be using the blender brushes, and I only have 3 of those, and I'm going to be using 4 different colors. So I am going to share one between my 2 greens because they're kind of in the same green family, and then one for each of my 2 purples. We are going to be using the Simply Succulent stamp set, and especially the dies from it, this large detailed die. Of the hen and chicks. We're going to use multi-purpose glue, our bone folder, and then we have some pieces, whoops, one extra, of the basic white cardstock. We have, basically you end up using one 8.5 by 11 sheet, and so you have the 5.5 by 8.5 scored at 4 1/4, and we're going to set that aside. And then you have 2 pieces that are 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. We're going to take one of those and line up this large detailed die. And actually, I think this is the smaller pieces. Hold on, I got to grab the right piece. Okay, so I just kind of line it up centered as best I can, and then I'm going to use a couple little pieces of washi tape, and I'm just going to hold it in place, and then I'm going to go run that through the die cut. I'll be right back. So if you use the 2-way glue just in sparing amounts and place it in a few spots very lightly on your die cut, and then allow it to dry, it has a temporary adhesive instead of permanent. And I've already done that so that for the video we don't have to wait around. So I am just going to take the uncut piece and lay the die cut piece over top, and that's going to be kind of like a stencil. Except for in the case of a stencil, we wouldn't be using both pieces. And on this, we are going to use both pieces. And I am going to start with my soft succulent, my lighter green, and my blender brush. And I'm just going to, hopefully that's in there, load that up with some ink. And there's really no wrong way to do this. I'm just going to kind of start in and do soft circular motions with my blender brush and get some ink laid down. And if you have a little piece of scrap, you can use that, because sometimes you get your hand in the ink and then you're going to transfer your fingerprints, and I've done that before, and then it just messes up whatever other project you're on. So I'm just gonna kind of go across or through or around the different parts of this. And it's okay that I'm not, laying down an equally dark layer of ink on each spot. That's not necessarily my goal. I want to get that variations in colors. And okay, so normally I would just go run this under some cold water and wash it, but I don't want to wait for it to dry, so I'm going to switch on over to Evening Evergreen. 3 of the colors I'm using on this project are from our new 2021-2023 in colors. I hope I got those right dates. And you can see that one's quite a bit darker. Okay, and I think I'll do a little bit up in here with that. Okay, so now, see, I wasn't even using that. I'm going to switch and use Fresh Freesia, and it gets its own brush. And I'm just going to pick some of these lighter places. And just add those kind of splashes of purple, like you see sometimes on those hen and chicks, the purple around the edges. You're not going to get, you know, like fine detail work with this because the brush head is big and you're not sure where you're going and all that. But that's not the goal. The goal is to just get those splashes of color on there and experiment, play around. Let's see, I think I'll do this one too. And then you just kind of add the color as light or as dark as you want until you feel happy about it. And you may think, this is not turning out very good. And then when you lift it off, take the 2 layers apart, you might be very surprised. So now I'm going to switch over and add some Blackberry Bliss because it is just that perfect darker purple for the edges of those. Grab some ink on it, and I'm going to just grab the corner here and the corner up here. And again, you can add on as much as you want or keep it as light as you want. Add a little in the center of that darker stuff. Whatever you think looks good. Okay, so I think I'm going to say I'm happy with that. And I'm going to just, to give us a blank underneath, I'm going to flip over that scratch paper. And I'm going to peel it apart. And still have to be a little gentle because of that glue, but well, I feel like it does a better job of not ripping up my paper, as sometimes even washi tape, I don't have great luck with that. Of course, now that I say that, I get to a corner that's gonna give me fits. Okay. All right, so now we have these 2 just stunning backgrounds to work with, and it was so simple to do. So I did lie because we're having 2 cards, so we need 2 of the card bases. So we're actually going to use 2.5 sheets of the basic black cardstock because we need 2 cut at 8.5 by 5.5 and then scored at 8 or 4 1/4. So, all right. And you don't have to use white behind both of these. I mean, it still will look great, but you can use other colors. Like you could use the fresh Freesia underneath that one. Hold on, let me grab a piece of basic black. It is very stunning under these. So, I mean, it's amazing what happens, you know, how the color in the background brings out these colors in the front. So I'm going to play with that for a minute, and then I will decide what background we're going to use. Okay, so I decided to go with Evening Evergreen for under this die cut piece. So I am going to add some more multi-glue to this to make that temporary permanent. And it would probably stay permanent if you just didn't try to reposition it or take it apart, but I haven't tried and I wanted to make sure it's still going to stick and stay how I want it. And I'm just going to find some little places, little random spots that are maybe wider than others, and to help kind of anchor that down. I don't mind it being a little bit free-flowing, but all right. So there's my background, and then I just have to decide if I want to put a dragonfly in front of it, or a sentiment, or what I want. And I haven't quite decided with that one yet. I already have a plan for this one, so we're going to work on it. I'm going to try to just kind of square up these edges where the die cut was sitting. And this will give it a little dimensional feel when I adhere it to the card base too. Trimming off that outer border. You could leave it, you can do whatever you want. So then I have a tag that I already cut out from the Stitch So Sweetly dies, and I am going to use the You Make the Ordinary Extraordinary. I think I'm going to stamp it in Blackberry Bliss on my fresh Freesia paper. Alright. And I'm just going to line this up the best I can. And there's our sentiment. Wash off my stamp. Alright, so now I am going to take my card base and I'm just going to score or burnish that fold. There we go. And I am going to use the Stampin Dimensionals to raise up this part. Could use the dimensionals, the strips, anything with that little bit of extra lift. These are just what I had handy and felt it would be fairly quick. So then I'm just gonna try to center that on my card. There we have that. And then I'm going to use the multi-purpose glue on my on my little tag. And then just decide where I want it. I like it around here. There we have a fairly simple, quick card. You could add bling. I'm not really great about that sometimes. You could do whatever you want. If you are wanting to make your cards to sell, Stampin' Up! Does have an angel policy. And you would want to look it up on the site and read all of the directions on that. But one of them is that you need to, on the back, put this little copyright Stampin' Up! Symbol. So this is the current set. The Handmade for You is the current set that Stampin' Up! Has, that has a couple of those copyright stamps. I put a couple of them together, and I'm just gonna put that on the back flap, kind of like Hallmark does, and then I'm all legal if I decide to sell the card. And there we have it. All right, next is our other side. Right, so for this other card, I decided that I am just going to use a little scrap of basic white, and I'm going to use the Evening Evergreen ink, and still from that Simply Succulent set, I am going to use the Thanks Sentiment, and I just got my finger in the ink, so I want to wash that off soon. I'm just going to stamp down my thanks. Ooh, pretty. Love it when the images stamp clearly and I don't get any extra little ink on the edges. And then I'm going to take my scissors. Let me close up my ink. And I'm just going to fussy cut around the sentiment. I'm just kind of turning my paper and not being super obviously close. There. So there's my little sentiment. And then I don't know if I want to, I don't even think I need to brush. You could take your blender brush and, you know, brush on some color, but I think I like how it stands out the way it is. You could also use the blender brush to do the little edging trick where you get a little bit of ink on the edges. Of course, you get some on the front too, so you have to be prepared for that unless you did it from the other side. Anyway, those are always options. So I am going to go ahead and burnish that fold. On my card base. And this part I'm just going to put straight down with the multi-purpose glue instead of dimensions. And it's gonna just take up that whole flap. I like to use the glue because then I have that little tiny bit of wiggle room when I am adhering my card front to the base. All right, and then I am going to use Dimensionals on my little thanks. And I think, pardon the arm, I'm going to just snip part of the edge for this side. My hands are a little bit sticky from my multi-purpose glue earlier. And I can put this wherever I want. Hopefully it's straight. There we have it. 2 cards from one basic background technique. I think this is a really fun way of getting a custom background and use for the dies. You can do it with other large detailed dies and just arrange them. I'll show you samples just in a second of ones I've done that with. But these, like this succulent die, is just perfect for this technique because it already has the frame and everything. Anyway, there you go. Thank you for watching. All right, I'm going to try to excuse the shadows. So these are the 2 cards I made in the video. And then I also used the sunflower set. And I cut 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 2 full and 2 partial sunflowers. And I used the background piece for this one. And then I also made this card and this card. So I actually kind of expanded that one to get 3 cards instead of just 2. And then I used the Blossoms and Blooms die and I made these 2 cards. So, I mean, it's pretty easy to get carried away with this and just have fun making a bunch of cards using the different die cuts and also the different colors. I mean, I could do this one in purples and pinks and yellows and greens and just have a blast. All right, thanks for watching my video on Ready, Aim, Stamp.